بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا مولانا محمد عليه وعلى آله أفضل الصلاة والتسليم. Begin in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Rahman, the Rahim. I send my peace and blessings upon the beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and inshallah we begin in his name. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I want to thank everybody here for making it out, mashallah. Hopefully the numbers keep growing, and hopefully the numbers are a reflection, inshallah, of the effort and work that we're all going to be placing together. I ask Allah to reward the time and the effort and the energy that you invest in this, and I ask Allah to allow it to be fruitful and productive. Inshallah, today we're going to move on to Surah Al-Masjid. We're going to keep it very brief. Inshallah, straight to the point. You can hear me without this, right? Yeah? Okay,
well,
perfect.
I prefer if you use it because somebody needs it here who's hard of hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so you prefer, okay.
Well, if you just clip it on, like,
Okay,
that should be
so
fine.
this is
Yeah.
fine? This is fine?
Yeah.
Just, okay,
Yeah,
let me clip
that's
it a little. Can you maybe put the volume up? Would you be able to do that? Just in case we need someone that is able to.
Thank you.
Anytime, oh my sister, anytime. Maybe a little, just a little higher? Okay, that's fine, inshallah. طيب, today, inshallah, we're going to continue with Surah Al-Masjid. And inshallah, before we begin Surah Al-Masjid, I want to remind you that we've already discussed Surah Al-Alaq. We've discussed Surah Al-Muddathir in some detail. Inshallah, for every class, there are around 40-50 pages of notes. They're available on QuranJourney.tv. So make sure that you do read them, make sure that you go through them, inshallah. If you have any questions, you do have access directly to me, inshallah, just to basically clarify anything that does need clarification, okay? Or requires any basic explanation. I want to begin with something that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud says, and this is very beautiful, right? He says, by Allah, there is no Allah, Lord, deity besides Him. No surah is revealed from the book of Allah except that I know where it was revealed. Nor ayah was revealed from the book of Allah except that I know the context behind its revelation. And if I knew anyone with more knowledge of the book of Allah that could be reached with camels, I would write to him. So this is such a powerful saying of Ibn Abbas. Number one, it shows that there were people like Ibn Abbas who knew not just the meaning of the Quran, but the context of the Quran. Like, where is this ayah revealed? What did it mean for the companions? How did they understand it? How did they implement it? And he says at the end, it goes to show his commitment. How did he get to that level? He says, if I know someone out there who knows more than I would, and I'm able to write to him through, like, with a camel, because that's the means of transportation at the time, I would. There's no doubt. I would definitely go. So it goes to show you the attitude that we should have towards the Quran, right? It's nice that you know the ayat. It's nice that you can recite them beautifully. It's nice that you have them memorized. But what's the point of having something in your mind that you can't understand? And what's the point of the understanding if it cannot be implemented and be put into action? So this is what Quran Journey is about. I like to remind us every time from the beginning so that we can, inshallah, have that understanding in mind. Tamam? The other thing that I want you to remember is sometimes we underestimate the power of dua. There's an authentic narration here. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, I want you to listen to this carefully. This is a beautiful story. And the reason I'm relating this is because it is very relevant to the surah we're talking about. So what's the situation? The situation here is the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his companions were in a battle. And they won. They won. So the young guys, they were at the very front. And they were celebrating. And they were saying, we won because of our might, because of our courage, because of how readily we are, again, capable of fighting. Because of our efforts. And then the old guys were kind of at the back. You know, the young guys, you know, the youth, we're always ready to go, yalla, yalla, yalla. And then what do we do? Sometimes we see the young guys making fun of the uncles. Right? You'll see this happen. Man, those uncles sitting there doing nothing, just causing trouble all the time. They have to think about something 1,000 times before they even move. Bureaucracy and red lines and red tape, and now I want to see the proposal, and I want to see the pictures, and let's approve it, and by the time they move anything, it's like 6 months later, and khalas, the party's over. This is the attitude. And this attitude was there around the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So here the young guys are celebrating, we won because of us, man, don't even see that, so this attitude. And they're kind of just making elders a little bit uncomfortable. So what does the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ remind them here? He says, هَلْ تُنصَرُونَ وَتُرْزَقُونَ إِلَّا بِضُعَفَائِكُمْ. Isn't it the case that you think, listen to this carefully, right? You gain no victory or livelihood except through the blessings and the sincere dua of the poor and the weak amongst you. Don't underestimate the power of dua. Yes, you may be the one fighting, you may be the one working, you may be the one producing, you may be the one that's actually at the forefront, doing, carrying the responsibility. But the fact that the responsibility itself has been placed upon you, the fact that you can get it done, the fact that you have the energy to do so, that could be a result of the dua of the weak that you don't even know about. So here the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is teaching the companions, don't have this segregated ideology, don't have this attitude of like us and them, the old and the young, the ones who have fought and the ones who didn't. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told them that if anyone went with him on a delegation, on a trip, or on a war, or on an outgoing, everybody will be treated the same. And he would give them all, if it's, of course, in battle, there will be a lot of droppings and whatnot, he would distribute it to them fairly. Right? So this is the attitude of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in this here manifested. Tamam? Also here, there's another beautiful hadith here. Right? And I want you to remember this hadith. And this is an authentic hadith. An authentic hadith. And this gives us like the reason I'm sharing this at the very beginning here is because it gives us hope and insight into the mercy and the rahmah and the blessing and the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibn Abbas, he narrates, he says, مَا مِنْ عَبْدٍ مُؤْمِنٍ إِلَّا وَلَهُ ذَنْبٌ يَعْتَادُهُ الْفِينَ بَعْدَ الْفِينَ أو ذنب هو مقيم عليه لا يفارقه حتى يفارق إن المؤمن خلق مفتنا توابا نسيا إذا ذكر. What does this mean? This is such the way the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ spoke is so eloquent, just so beautiful, so dynamic, yet so precise. These how many words were here? 25 words. In order for me to translate them, I had to actually use a whole paragraph. I mean, English is a great language, but it's hard to say things in English. I mean, we don't have the same level of eloquence in English, or maybe my own limitations, right? As my second language, may Allah make it easy. So he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's no believing servant except that she or he has a slip or a sin that becomes habitual. This is something that we don't think about. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said it. He said, there's no believer amongst you. That means you and me. There's no believer amongst you except that you will have a sin that you will keep falling to. It could be a sin of the eye, it could be a sin of the ear, it could be a sin of the tongue. But there's a sin, a limitation, an imperfection that you're going to fall to sometimes. And it may become habitual. And what does he say? Listen to this carefully. He says, the believer may fall to it from time to time, or a fault that they continuously do. And this sin does not depart from him or her until he or she departs from this life. Okay? Indeed, the believer was created to be exposed to fitna, to be tested, to be subjected to this type of, again, fitna. Right? However, this individual, this believer, was also created so that those fitan, listen to this carefully, those challenges bring him or her closer to Allah by bringing the inner flaws out, giving him or her an opportunity to perfect himself or herself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the human, the believer, was created forgetful, but longing to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِذَا ذُكِّرَ ذَكَرَ. When reminded, he or she remembers. What does this mean? This means that one of the tricks of shaitan is to come to you and to tell you, you keep breaking, you keep weakening, you keep falling to the same sin, you keep making the same mistake, there's no good in you, you'll never be good enough to do anything. Accept that you're imperfect, accept that you're flawed, accept that you can't do it. That's the waswas of shaitan. Yes, no human being will be perfect. That's not a ticket to completely go and, I'm going to do whatever I want, I'm imperfect, I'll never be perfect. No. The human being, the believer, will strive towards perfection but never ever attain it. You may attain it for 10 days, a year, 6 months, who knows? Every one of us has a different saturation. But you'll never be perfect completely. Failing to slip, failing to make mistakes. So the idea is that every one of us will have those mistakes. So the believer does not take advantage of the immense mercy of Allah. Allah will forgive me, it doesn't matter what I do, because that's transgression. And the believer doesn't say, I will commit or have committed a mistake that Allah will never forgive, because that is arrogance. you're not greater, and your sins are not greater than the rahmah of Allah, and the forgiveness and the mercy of Allah is not there to be taken advantage of. You have to be honest with yourself, strive towards perfection, but if there is a flaw that keeps repeating and manifesting itself, look at that as an invitation from Allah to bring the best of you out. Because you won't reach perfection if you're not going to be able to overcome that fitna and temptation, or that shahawa, or that doubt or desire. So therefore those mistakes are there as an opportunity from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to really bring the best of us out, and exposing us to those things really showcases our true colors. That's the meaning of fitna. Fitna is associated with burning something. You know, when you have gold, you have something really valuable. You expose it to really high heat, it's not going to break, it's not going to melt. It's got a really high melting point. It's got a really strong tolerance point. So fitna is to heat something up. Fitna is also to expose something to a situation that brings the truest colors out. Every one of us here has been to a point like, you know, man, if I was the imam, I would do this and this and this and this and this and that. If I was the president, I would do this and this and this and that differently. If I was the one being married, I would have never done that. I would have never done this. We say that. You see the mistakes of others and you say, I will never do that myself. You see the shortcomings in others and you say, I will never do that myself. But in reality, you don't know that. You won't know that until you're in that situation. And when you are in that situation, that's when your truest colors come out. For example, I want you to imagine the two guys over there. What are your names? You two, yeah, brothers. I think you look alike. Musa and Isa? Allahu Akbar, mashallah. It couldn't that be more, mashallah. Perfect. So you got Musa and Isa. Musa, I'm going to put you on the spot here, okay? Musa tells Isa, you are my best friend. I love you, man. I would never, ever, ever, ever backbite you or stab you in the back or ever betray you. I'm your bro. Like I'm your brother. Allah has put this love for me in your heart.
They are brothers.
I know, mashallah, I can see that. Right? So you guys say that, I'll never ever betray you. Right? Or if you call me, I'll be there 10 minutes. It doesn't matter where I am. I'll teleport to you if I can. So you got this, mashallah, all this talk, all this real beautiful feelings that do exist. You're like, that doesn't happen in real life, Sheikh. I don't know what you're talking about. But let's assume it does, okay? Let's assume it doesn't. Let's assume it's better and it's going to get better, inshallah. Now you say that. But the reality is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you said that, Allah will test that. Allah will test what you say. So Allah will put you in a situation, Musa or Isa, just putting you on the spot, just to keep you engaged. Your brother has a car accident. May Allah protect you. May Allah protect you from ever going through that situation. But I want you to imagine a situation that's really difficult. He gives you a call. And as he gives you that call, you're on your way, and then something really, 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 really tempting happens. That is a fitna. Because it's there to show what matters more to you in this time. That thing which is tempting you, calling you attention, trying to get your attention, or you fulfilling your word to your brother. Does that make sense? That's what a fitna is. So imagine it could be a really pretty girl that you've been trying to, get married to forever. And finally, that time, she says, guess what? I spoke to my father, he said yes. If you are able to go to his house right now, within 5 minutes, he will say yes, we can get married tomorrow. That's a good fitna. The fitna doesn't always have to be bad. It doesn't have to be like a girl saying, A'udhu Billah, let's call shaitan and iblis and have, it doesn't always have to be bad. Fitna can be good. Yeah, you understand? So that's a good fitna. But here, it comes to show your true colors. What's more important to you? Your brother, who you just gave your word to, or that situation now that is calling you and needs immediate attention? So that's a fitna. And sometimes we only think of fitna as a bad thing. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says your wealth is a fitna, your health can be a fitna, and your children are a fitna for you. Amwalakum wa awladukum fitna. You understand? So keep that in mind. Tamam? Another interesting hadith here, or a few series of hadith here, show us again the importance of remembering that those who are the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are not necessarily the ones that we see in the public, in the spotlight. They could be the ones that we deem as weak, unimportant, not really valuable. But in the sight of Allah and the scales of Allah, they're really important. So don't ever underestimate the power of that young kid at the back who doesn't have much but is making dua. Don't underestimate that person on their deathbed who may not seem to be able to contribute much to the community at that time. The power of the dua may be enough. Don't underestimate the old man in the community who doesn't do much for you or anybody else, but the power of the dua might be significant and enough. That doesn't mean we just become an ummah that's complacent and focus only on the dua. No, we are an ummah that is active, and we are an ummah that is ready to do the best that we can, but we don't forget that everyone is in this world is there to serve a function. Everyone that's part of our ummah is there to serve a function, and we work together with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. A functionless approach, you may say, but it's an idealistic and a realistic approach. Now, of course, this is in a longer course, we would go into the pre-Islamic tribal system. We'll go into who the tribal leader was, what are the certain qualities that he had, and certain attributes that he had. What are certain examples? What is the definition of the Arab? Why were they called the Arab? What are the things that existed in the Jahiliyyah? What are some of the practices that existed? And what are some of the basically issues, moral issues that existed in the Jahiliyyah? I'll go briefly over it, but the notes are there for you, inshallah, to basically remember and study on your own term. Tamam? So the pre-Islamic Arab society was one based on tribes. You had to belong to a tribe. You had to be part of a gang. If you were not part of the gang, you could not basically be protected. Your chances at living or surviving or thriving were very limited. The leader of the society or the leader of the tribe had to have 6 qualities. Number 1, generosity. You had to be really generous. You had to be able to give, and give abundantly. And in order for you to be generous, what do you have to have? You have to be wealthy. So instead of saying you have to be wealthy, they said you have to be generous. So this is a way, generosity in itself indicates that you're already wealthy, and indicates that you're not cheap with that wealth. Number 2, najda, dependability, immediate ability to help those who seek it. So you have to be someone who's got resources to give refuge to people. Number 3, hilm, wisdom and decisiveness. One of those people, you have to be one of those people that is immediate, on the spot, quick, ready to act, ready to make a decision. Number 4, you have to have patience, sabr. Number 5, you have to have tawadu, you have to be humble. You have to be humble. Number 6, you have to have expressive eloquence. You have to really be someone who's got a beautiful ability to use your words. And we know that words are just like swords, right? They can really make a difference, and they can actually sometimes be even more powerful than swords. Tamam? Additional conditions where you have to be an elder, you have to be one of the nobles, you have to be dedicated to the tribe, you have to be wealthy, and you have to have resources and connections, the most resources. The responsibilities included helping the weak, accommodating the guests, paying debts and ransoms. Like if someone had a debt in your tribe, it's your duty to pay that debt. Your duty to pay that ransom. Introducing the tribe at a battle, so you would actually introduce your tribe before the battle. You'd say, we are the battle of this, we're the tribe of this, part of the clan of that, we're here to fight you, here are the conditions, if our flag goes down, that's the end of the battle, you take whatever. So he would basically negotiate even before battle. And that's how they actually worked back then, right? Some of you are like, subhanallah, man. Well, even nowadays, the generals meet and they say, okay, our guys are going to fight your guys, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to fight till the last man? Or what are the conditions? Right? So even some of these things do happen till nowadays. You have to ensure the economic success of the tribe, and you have to consult the senior members before making a decision, for decision making. Now, why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about these conditions? Because we're about to talk about a story, Surah Al-Masjid. We're going to talk about a story that really needs this background in mind. I need you to focus on these backgrounds in mind. Here's one thing that I want you to remember. Write it down, okay? A lot of the times, the pre-Islamic Arab society is either painted as really negative, really backward, or it's painted as neutral. You won't ever see it painted as positive. It's kind of like dark, and then Islam came and made everything beautiful. That's not really realistic, and it's not really true. The Arabs, just like any society, they had a lot of good in them. Because when you say the Arab society was really bad, and Islam came and changed it, that gives you the impression that things have to be really, really bad before Islam could come, or before Islam could make a difference. No, there were great things that existed among the Arabs that Islam came to highlight and to make better. Like the patience they had, the strength, the bravery, the warriorship, the selflessness, the sacrifices. There were these things, the generosity. But the problem is it was social. It was social. It was all done with the intention and with the incentive of maintaining social order, succeeding and becoming better people. It's kind of like nowadays, you look at this society. You can't say that a non-Islamic society is completely bad. No, there are many beautiful aspects of it. For example, in this kind of society, you'll see people are very timely. Right? People are very timely. Right? And why are they timely? You understand? Why are they timely? Because time is money. So the incentive is not to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be better with Allah. No, the incentive is a social one. It's a material one. In order for us to be a very successful and efficient society, we need to have time management. And it's taught, and it's a form of discipline. And it's something that is highlighted. You had a question?
Yeah, but one thing I agree with you, like time is money. But the other thing is that when you go to, like, I'm Indian background, my parents are from India. Everything runs late. I'm often late. And what I was told by one friend is that it also shows disrespect to the person who you're supposed to meet on time.
You're right.
Because everybody's time is limited in this world.
Of course.
So if I'm waiting around for this friend and I could be with my kids or my husband or sleeping or whatever else I might be doing, I'm disrespecting the other person's time, not necessarily just monetary issues.
Yes, ahsanti. I agree completely with you. I agree 100%. But the point that we're trying to make is that there is not a religious incentive per se.
Yes.
You don't have to have religion in society to have justice. You don't have to have religion in the society per se to have these good qualities. You can have an evolved form of religion. You can have an accepted form of morality, an accepted fabric that people, a social fabric that people accept and heed to. And this was kind of like the Jahiliyyah, an evolved Islamic belief system that evolved into idol worship. It started with Ibrahim, eventually evolved into idol worship, but they retained some of those good qualities that were kind of self-serving, that were kind of socially conducive to success. You understand? So that is kind of, it gives you an idea of the way that they thought. Now I'm going to skip all of this, and I'm going to give you some of the practices that they had that were not. We can talk about the defining the Arab in a bit. I'm going to give you some of the practices that existed that were not the best. Right? There was freedom of religion in the Arab society. You know that? You were free to believe in anything that you wanted, as long as you wouldn't publicize it, as long as you wouldn't come forward and try to overthrow the power, as long as you wouldn't question the power in place. However, there were other qualities that were really strange. Number one, nikah al-istibda'. These are factual, by the way, historic. A man would send his wife to someone else, another man, and he would basically, do we have kids here? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So a man would send his wife to another man, and he would basically ask for a situation to take place, hoping that the progeny would be stronger than it would have been if it was just his own man, his own son. Can you imagine how strange that is? That was a practice that existed, right? Another one is friends with benefits. You know, we always think about like friends with benefits as kind of a thing of the modern times. No, the pre-Islamic Arab people, they practiced this. Not everybody. There were good people in every aspect, in every society, but they had this, where it was a secret, or even sometimes public affairs. Even sometimes with married people. Some of you are like, really? Yes, it did happen. There are many historic examples of that. You won't read this in most books, because again, we're not going to really get into the details of the moral compass of the Arabs. Another one is nikah al-badl, or tabdil, which is spousal exchange. So can you imagine this? Spousal exchange, where they would actually exchange spouses for a while, for a period, and that's again, Allah al-Musta'an. There's another one called economic polyandry. How many of you have heard about this? A woman marries more than one man for the purpose of security. So she would actually be married to simultaneous men, many different men at the same time. So we always think about polygamy, but this is again, polyandry existed as well. Not as much, more rare of course. Nikah al-raht is group copulation. You guys can basically decipher that based on the name. Nikah al-sir, secret marriages. There are also dowry-less exchange, ransom marriages, and inherited marriages. These are just some of the examples within marriage. Some of the weirdest parts of marriage. For example, they had this thing where you just inherit. If your father was married or had a slave or married to someone who didn't have a tribe per se, you would just inherit that person afterwards. This was one of the practices. So it gives you an idea that the Arab society, it wasn't completely dark, And it wasn't great either. There were great qualities that were amongst people, and there were also very bizarre practices. If you think these are bizarre, I'm actually going to give you a list here, hopefully I have it here, of other practices that are actually even more crazy. I believe it's in the other set of notes. I hope that we have access to it. Anyway, it's in the other notes, inshallah. Some of these other practices are really very strange. One of the strangest that I remember is that a man before traveling, he would take a knot, and he would tie it around the tree called the ratim tree. And when he tied it around this tree called the ratim tree, he would travel, and he would go for a month or whatever. When he comes back, he would come back to that tree and try to figure out if the knot is still in place. If the knot isn't still in place, that means his wife was great, loyal to him in his absence, and he would just be happy, go back to his wife, everything is great. If that knot was untied, it meant that his wife basically cheated on him, had an affair, and he would just take the sword and just kill his wife. No questions asked. Based on a knot. This happened, we have historical examples of this, more than 5 times, and mentioned in historic books of situations like this. Another one, basically the rabbit's ears. They used to basically hang up rabbit's ears in the houses with the intention of protecting against black magic, against any kind of envy, and against bad things, bad omens and things like that. So these practices existed. Another one was they actually used to basically take the camel that belonged to someone really, really wealthy. So you have someone really wealthy, you have someone that's really powerful. They would take the camel and they would bring the camel and tie the camel next to their grave. So that when they would be brought back to life, they would see the camel, they would take the camel and they would ride with the camel. They're kind of like the Egyptians. You think that's crazy, but that's a lot of the ancient Egyptians believe that. They're going to come back, there's something called the afterlife. That's why you got to put all the money and the gold with the tomb of the deceased pharaoh. So that when he comes back to life, he's got all the power, he's got all the money to basically be able to succeed in the second life. And now the people would see this camel die in front of their eyes, but they would just be completely they'd be like, don't worry about it. You think that they're dead, but the camel is actually going to be resurrected again with its owner, and they're going to be chilling, don't worry about it. These are some of the practices that existed in the Jahiliyyah, and it goes to show you what happens when there's a moral compass that is absent of Islam. You're going to get a lot of things right, but you're going to get a lot of things wrong. Kind of like the world that we live in today. Are there many aspects of Western, and I use that word carefully, society where there's good? Of course there are. So many aspects where we can learn a lot from. Because they implement it better than we do. That's reality. But are there aspects where they can learn from the Islamic texts and they can learn from some of the values, especially the family values and marriage and things like that? Of course there are. And so Islam comes to bring the best in people out. Islam doesn't come to say your society, your culture is disgusting, it's repulsive, throw it away, and Islam comes to be the new. No, Islam comes to say there are a lot of things that are good in your society we accept as long as they don't have any contradiction with the Quran and the Sunnah. But the Quran and the Sunnah come to bring new, to bring good, to preserve the good, and to restore the good in people. Restore the good compass in people, right? One of the really terrible examples of this in the Jahiliyyah is the slavery and the way that they treated their slaves. And this is not in the Jahiliyyah only. There are bosses like this that treat people like this even in this world. And I'm going to show you a video if we have time. It's really disgusting and disturbing, but it happens even now. One example of this is there was a girl. There was a girl, she used to stay in the Masjid of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. She was so scarred, she was a woman at the time, she was so scarred that she was not able to function as a normal human being. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had her stay in the masjid. She stayed in the masjid, and he had her basically get paid from the state. And Aisha, she used to come and walk past her, and she used to see her praying and doing a lot of good, doing dua and dhikr, but she used to always constantly repeat these lines, repeat these words. Oh, the day that this happened to me. Oh, the day that this happened to me. So disturbing, and some words like that. So she asked, what is this day that you're talking about? You always say it. Have you ever seen someone like that? You go to the masjid and there's just one person by themselves. They're just praying, and then after they've prayed, they just nod in their head. They keep repeating the same thing. They seem to have some people call this a panic attack. Some people call this someone is disturbed. Whatever you want to call it, they're having a difficult time and keep repeating the same word. So Aisha asked her, "What is the situation?" And she told her, "When I was very young, I was a slave. And the owner had a beautiful pearl necklace that was red in color, kind of like made out of rubies. So she lost the necklace. A bird came one day, picked up the necklace and flew away because it's attractive. It looks like meat or something like that. And when the owner found out that the necklace is gone, she thought that I stole it. So she told me to take it out. I told her I don't have it. She said, "You have it. Where else would it go? You're the slave and you're the thief." Like slaves by default in their minds will be thieves. I didn't take it. I swear I didn't take it, but Allah didn't take it. So how dare you say about Allah? What she did is she started to basically rip her clothing to find it. She couldn't find it. So she accused her and she told her, "Forgive me for this." She told her, "You probably hid it in your private area." So she took a dagger and tortured her for hours until finally the bird came back and dropped it. And they found, this is a true story, and they found the pearl again, the necklace, somewhere in the street or somewhere in the area, and they realized that she wasn't lying. And that scarred her for the rest of her life. And there was no one that could hold those people accountable. There was no one that could say anything. Because she's a slave and slaves had no right. So imagine that. And this is her story, and this is someone that used to clean around the masjid. There's a lot of other stories associated with this individual that you can basically learn and read on your own. But the idea here is that this is an example of the dynamic that existed in that society that was not the best. That was not the best, yes?
You're getting a message about low battery? I don't know if you...
Yeah. I do have the charger. We can charge it, inshallah. Actually, you don't have the charger. It's okay. We'll be fine, inshallah. طيب. One thing that I want to also define, inshallah, today is defined in the Arab. Who can tell me, what does it mean? What does the word Arab mean? Make this interactive. What does the word Arab mean? Yeah. You want to give it a try? No. Go ahead, yeah.
You live in a country in the Middle East.
You live in a country in the Middle East. That's what Arab means? Linguistic. I'm talking about the linguistic root. Why do they call them Arab? Okay. It's right there on the screen. The first thing that the word Arab is associated with is... yeah?
Oh, sorry, I was just waiting away.
That's okay, that's fine. Come on, guys. It's right there. Allahu Akbar. MashaAllah alayk, habibi. Thank you for breaking the ice. Eloquence and clarity. So the word Arab means someone who's eloquent and clear. Right? The next one is also associated with mobility. Mobility, to move around. So Arab comes from also associated with the word Abara or Araba. An Arabiya, for example. Arabiya is a car because it travels. So if I say something and that message gets across, then I'm Arabi. I was able to move something in me and move it in a way that it was able to move you. So I was able to transfer something that existed in my mind through my tongue and pass it to you, and it was able to move you. That's what Arabi means. So someone who's able to move through words, others. Someone who's eloquent and powerful in wording. So that's what the word Arabi actually means. Before the cultural, before the geographic, historical development of the people, that's why they were called Arabs. For every word, there's an origin. Like Canada, it's actually an Aboriginal word. Right? Kanata. And every word that we have, there's a reason for it. So when we talk about the word Arab, that's how we use it today, someone who lives in the Middle East. But that's not how it was, because for them, there was no other East or West. That was just them. Right? Why did they call themselves Arab? These are some of the associations. I have some other ones here for you, also in your notes, but this is the one that I basically find most comprehensive, and inshallah, you can basically read some of the rest on your own. Again, this is a lot, not enough time to go through all of it, but again, it's written in a way that you'll be able to understand most of it on your own. This is just basically an intro to get you to think about this. طيب. We begin with Surah Al-Masjid. We begin with Surah Al-Masjid. Tamam? What is Surah Al-Masjid and what's the situation? When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was given the command to finally call his family. وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ. So he was given the command to call his family. There are 2 points of calling or announcements. The first announcement is to his family. The second announcement is to the public. What's the first surah that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ announced to the public? Not Iqra. No. There were 17 or 18 surahs that were private. He did not announce them to the public. Then the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was ordered to announce this surah publicly. It's Surah Al-Najm. So the first surah that is announced publicly is Surah Al-Najm. But the first surah that's announced to the family, or actually the first time that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ announces the message to the family, is before the revelation of Surah Al-Masjid. The content of Surah Al-Masjid were not announced. I hope this is making sense. The content of the surah was not announced until much later. I hope this makes sense. So I want you to imagine the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ received Surah Iqra. He went home, he didn't tell the community, he told his wife. His wife told him, go and speak, or we talked about this last time, let's go and speak to Waraqa. Waraqa said, you are a prophet of Allah, these are the signs, they're all in you. If I live long enough, I will support you. He didn't live long enough, he passed away. Then slowly other surah came, Surah Al-Muddathir came, talking about Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira, but the rest of the community didn't know much about the Quran at this time. They heard little bits and pieces. But the first to be actually recited out loud was Surah Al-Najm. Tamam? Now Surah Al-Masjid comes to actually discuss a situation that happened with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. When he was told to speak to his family, he gathered his family. He says, oh Banu this, oh Banu that. They're all from his family. Oh tribe of this, oh tribe of that. All part of the Quraysh clan. Come. And he basically told them, if he stood on the mountain in Mecca, and he said to them, if I told you that the enemy is behind this mountain, and they're coming and they're ready to attack, would you believe me? They said, yes, oh Muhammad, we will believe you because we know you're not a liar, and we know that you're a man of honesty and a man of trustworthiness. And we talked about his profile last class and examples of that. Please do make sure that you read those notes if you haven't been there. And so he told them, well, there is no enemy, but I'm telling you about something more important, and that is the threat of being distant from Allah and not being connected with Allah, and the threat of the fire associated with that. And he started to speak with them, trying to communicate to them the message of Islam. Who's the first person to get up and stop him and interrupt him? His own uncle. His own uncle, Abu Lahab, whose name is actually Abdul Uzza. His name is actually Abdul Uzza. He is the direct uncle of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had how many uncles? How many uncles did the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ have?
5 or 6.
Ahsant, 5 or 6. Good job. Why do we say 5 or 6? It's in the notes. It's a long discussion. It's in the notes. Make sure that you read it, inshallah. But good. I'm giving you more incentives to read the notes. You have to read the notes now. Yes?
What does Abdul Uzza mean?
Uzza is one of the asnam of Quraysh. One of the... So you have what the Arabs did. This is a good question. What the Arabs did is they took the names of Allah and they made them feminine. So Allah became Allat, and Aziz became Uzza. So these were the feminine names to the female gods that the Arabs prescribed, not besides Allah, but with Allah. Not instead of Allah, but with Allah.
This is before Islam.
This is before Islam. So he was called the Abdul Uzza, the slave of the female Aziz, basically. So instead of Abdul Aziz, as we would have, is Abdul Uzza. Good question. Tamam? And this gives you an idea of the family that he was probably brought up in. طيب. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he's interrupted by his own uncle. And he says, أَلِهَذَا جَمَعْتَنَا, for this you've gathered us. تَبًّا لَكَ يَا Muhammad. Tabba is the opposite of basically, tabba means to be cut off. To be cut off of blessing, to be exempted from the mercy of Allah. It's the opposite of Bismillah. You know, when you say Bismillah, there's a blessing and barakah associated with that. Tabbat is the opposite effect. You're distancing yourself from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he says, Tabban laka ya Muhammad. He cursed Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, you know, he swore at him and he told him, get out of here. This is why you've gathered us. That's the first thing that he did. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ignored him. The second thing that Abdul Uzza did is he would go behind the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. To every person that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is trying to have a conversation with about Islam, and he would go and undo the work that was being done. He would tell him, don't listen to him, he's my own nephew, he's a fool, he's crazy, he's this, da, da, da. So he would undo the work that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is doing. That's the second thing that he used to do. The third thing that Abdul Uzza did is Abdul Uzza, he was a man, I want you to get a profile of him. He was a man who's very, very wealthy. One of the wealthiest people from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's family. Some people say the wealthiest from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's family. Number two is extremely handsome. Extremely handsome. He was very, very bright in color. You have to also, I would, in a bracket, tell you here, that bright is relative. White is relative. What the Arab people called white is not the same as what the Canadian people will call white. So when we say he's bright, it's not talking about he's got green eyes and completely not Caucasian in the way. He is white in relation, in relative to everybody else in that part of the world. So he's whiter in complexion, and he had red cheeks. We're going to come to that in a bit. So he had cheeks that would blush, and that for the Arabs was considered to be something handsome. Beauty is relative. You may not nowadays consider red cheeks to be something beautiful, but back then they did. And some people may do, and that's why people put blush and all kinds of things on their faces. Well, that's a separate discussion, right? But that's the idea here. He was very handsome, very powerful, very rich. All right? And one of the things that also he did, what he had, was he was from the elite. And his two sons, Utbah and Utaybah, were married to the Prophet's two daughters, Ruqayya and Kulthum. It's very important. So the two daughters of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, Ruqayya and Kulthum, were married to the two sons of Abdul Uzza. So imagine they have a family connection, a family network that predates the coming of Islam. But surprisingly, his own uncle and his own father-in-law to his children, right, to his daughters, is the first person to turn away from him and to insult him and to curse him. Tamam? So tab is a form of dua, and tab is the opposite. Tab is similar to bet, which means to be cut off, to be lost, for something to be deficient, and to render something null. I want you again, these are important definitions that you can read and benefit from. I'm going to just highlight, give you the big story, the big picture here, and you can fill in the details inshallah later on your own, written for you so that you can easily understand and you can relate to inshallah. Hopefully you can inshallah have the time to do that. But what happened? The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when he started calling people to Islam, Quraysh didn't like that. So Quraysh went to Abu Lahab. His name is Abdul Uzza. He was already called Abu Lahab before Islam. And the reason why he was called Abu Lahab was, Lahab means red, flame. So the reason why he was called Abu Lahab is he had a reputation for being very angry. He would easily get angry. His cheeks were already red, and when he got angry, he would even be more red. So imagine someone who has a very short fuse, a really, really, big temper. Eventually, what do you call that person? Mr. Hot Head right here. So for the Arabs, they didn't have hot head as a concept. They had red cheeks. So they called him Abu Lahab. Stay away from him, because if he gets khalas, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, he's done. So don't tick it up. Don't fuel the fire. He's already on fire. Leave him alone. So he was called that, and others say because his cheeks were red and he was handsome. Allah knows best why he got that name, that kunya, that reputation, that nickname, that quality associated with him. But it's one of those two that historians basically look at. Tamam? Now here's the catch. When the Quraysh went to him and told him, listen, he's your nephew, do something about it. He said, don't worry about it. Done. He comes to his nephew. He comes to his nephew and the father of his daughters-in-law. And said, listen, Muhammad, I understand this thing. Look, whatever you need, I'll take care of you. Just stop doing it. He said, I can't stop doing it. It's not of me. It's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he tells him 1, 2, doesn't listen. I'm going to give you one final ultimatum. Either you stop or your two daughters are divorced. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ tells him, I can't. It's not on my hand to stop. So can you imagine the difficulty the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ goes through? Family dynamics. So he goes home, Abu Lahab, Abdul Uzza, and he tells his children, as of today, your daughters are divorced. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's daughters, Muhammad's daughters are divorced. Your wives are divorced. Send them home. So Utbah, he's really sad, but he's got to do what his father says. And this is one of the things that existed in the Jahiliyyah, in the pre-Arab society, is that you had to listen, you had to obey your father's command. Especially if he was someone in power, especially if he's someone in authority, because you're next in line to the throne of the tribe, and you need to have a good relationship with your father in order to have a good relationship with the tribe. And women, they can come, they can go. And plus she's the daughter of someone who's claiming to be a prophet at this time for him. So Utbah was really sad because he loved her, but he had to do it nonetheless. He went back home and told her, listen, we can't live together, go home. She was really sad, she came to him crying. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ took her back in. I want you to imagine how sad this moment is. Very sad. Now the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's second daughter, who was married to Utaybah, she wasn't let go that easy. Utaybah said to Abu Lahab, said to his father, Abdul Uzza, I am going to divorce her, but I'm not going to make it easy. I'm going to torture her and make her suffer emotionally, because physically it wasn't really a thing, it wasn't really culturally appropriate for a man to hit a woman if she wasn't a slave. So he wouldn't hit her physically, he wasn't going to beat her up, he was just going to discipline her emotionally, really break her emotionally, so that she will beg to leave. So that's what he said. He said, I will not divorce her, but I will break her emotionally to the point where she's going to ask to leave. And that's what he did. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ got his first daughter back, and she's now living in the house crying. Can you imagine how difficult this must be? But fast forward a few years, who would she marry? Uthman. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took this from her, gave her much better. But the struggle is there. You can't deny it. Emotionally, you can't deny it. So she was really sad. And the second daughter, he couldn't even have her back, and he knew that she was being emotionally abused. So he went to the son and he told him, please give her back. I understand you don't like her, you don't want to be with her, and that's fine, just let her go. He's like, no, I'm not going to let her go. And if you want to turn this into a fight, I'm ready to fight you. And he gave the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ a really hard time. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was known for patience. But this is in the early time of da'wah. This is in the early time of Islamic history, the very beginning. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ continued and continued and continued, and he saw his own daughter breaking in front of him. So he lost it. He tipped. And the only thing that he did, he made dua against him. The only thing he did is he made dua against him. He said, because at this time he's powerless, he can't really do much. And the last thing you want to do is spark an intertribal war, because that would ruin everything. So he's trying to maintain the peace. So he makes dua against him. And he says, this is after a while of trying and being patient. He says, may Allah send one of his beasts against you. Can you imagine? That's the dua that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ made. Now, do you think the dua of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is something that can be, just taken like that lightly? No. And this in itself, Allah, is one of the miracles in the seerah. Right after the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ made this dua, the son of Abu Lahab, Utaybah, he went on a delegation or a trip with a group, a convoy of people. And when he went, they camped out. While they travel, they don't travel at night. They would travel and camp, and then travel in the morning camp, travel in the morning camp. So when they camped at night, his own father was with him. And he said to him, Muhammad made dua against you, you better watch out, because Muhammad's dua comes true. So can you imagine, he doesn't want to listen and doesn't want to believe in Muhammad, but he knows at the same time that Muhammad's dua comes true. So he tells him, be careful, and let's take extra precautions to make sure you're protected. We're out here in the desert. If a beast is going to get to you, it's probably going to be here. So what did they do? They actually assemble all of the tents. They make the tent into circles, and then outside of the circles, they put all of the camels, and they basically mount them to the ground, make them sit. And the idea here is that if a lion or an animal is going to come, he would first have to go through the camels, who would make a lot of noise, and then go through the tents, who would obviously react, and then they put the tent of Utaybah, the son of Abu Lahab, in the middle. Now I want you to imagine all of these guys, they're camping out at night, and a wild lion appears. You have all these fires outside, you have all these tents, you have all these camels, jumps past all of that, goes straight to the middle tent, and devours the guy. Devours him. Some of you are like, how? You've never seen a lion jump?
Like jump over the tents and the camels?
No,
Not at the same, like if you, one first level, then the second level, habibi. You don't have to jump through that. You don't have to jump over the tent. Just through it, man. There's got to be space. You can imagine it. Come on, you got imagination. You can imagine it happening, no? MashaAllah, he's nodding. Right? The idea here is that subhanallah. Now this would be enough for you to be like, Amantu billah, let's go back. Yeah, Rasulullah, okay, I believe. But do you think he's going to believe? No, he doesn't believe. They become more angry, more agitated, more fueled with hatred, more fueled with envy, more fueled with disgust, and more fueled with rage towards the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So here we're established. When you read the surah, you're not understanding any of this. You're not understanding the context of this. That's why understanding the context is important, okay? So we talked about 3 things so far. The 4th thing that you have to remember is Abu Lahab, listen to this carefully. Abu Lahab, listen to this carefully guys. Abu Lahab was also a closely tight in terms of knit and relationship and agreements with Banu Makhzum. And Banu Makhzum were responsible for the weapons and the war amongst Quraysh. Abu Lahab was a weapons dealer, a weapons merchant. He sold weapons. Now for someone who sells weapons, what do they need to always happen? War, because you need people to sell to. So one of the other reasons why he's called Abu Lahab is because he's known for being this type of person who's Abu Lahab literally means the father of flame. So you can imagine he has a flame, and wherever he goes, he throws these little fires. He puts these little fires everywhere. Because when he puts fires between people, they're going to fight. When people fight, they're going to buy weapons. When people buy weapons, Abu Lahab gets richer. So he's also one of those people that at the expense of people, success in people's lives, he would actually create these little fires with the intention of making profit and making money. And this is why he's also called Abu Lahab. Now here's what happens. So he insulted the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He supported the people against the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He ordered for the divorce of the daughters of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And on top of that, he was a weapons merchant, of course, who would eventually sell weapons to the people who would fight against the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? And the last 2 things that I want to remind you of, 2 really important things, because tabba means cut off. So he said to Muhammad, may you be cut off. May your work be useless and nothing. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came to defend the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam by saying to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab. The hand of Abu Lahab was cut off, meaning there's no blessing in it. And indeed it was cut off. There's no blessing in it. What does this mean? So the first one is a dua. For example, you say, may I never see you again. And he never saw him again. So may I never see you again is a dua. And the second one is a confirmation that it actually happened. So tabbat yada abi lahab wa tab, meaning it actually happened. So what happened? This is such a powerful ayah. We read it, we forget how powerful this ayah is. Listen to this carefully. Number 1, during the time that Quraysh boycotted the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's family. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's family was boycotted for basically a period of 3 years. 16 of those months, or 18 of those months, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's family didn't have, Jazakumullah khair, may Allah bless you. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ didn't have anything. It's okay actually, it's fine. They can read the notes on there. Yeah, you can take the thing for your own notes. Are you using it?
No, it's fine, I got it.
Jazakumullah khair, may Allah bless you and give you Jannat Firdaus. Right? So during the time of Abu Lahab, during the time that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's family was boycotted, Abu Lahab did not want to be part of the boycott, be affected by the boycott. Is Abu Lahab part of the Prophet's family? Yes. Because Quraysh boycotted the whole family of the Prophet, or the Arabs boycotted the whole family of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, should he have been boycotted as well? Yes. But he came to the elite and says to them, you know what? I revoke my citizenship and my connection with Muhammad in any way, shape or form. I actually revoke my affiliation with the tribe. For a Arab person to revoke their affiliation with the tribe at the time was considered something almost impossible. For someone who's a noble, an elite, to do that was considered impossible. So when we say he was cut off, he himself cut himself off from the family of the Prophet Muhammad. There were people who were not Muslim from the Prophet Muhammad's family, but said, out of respect for blood, we're not going to let him suffer alone. If you're going to boycott Muhammad, you're going to have to boycott the rest of us. But Abu Lahab was different. He didn't care. I don't care his blood or not. I care about my money. I'm not going to let my money and my business stop because of some blood relations. You know what? Forget the relationship. I don't even belong to the tribe anymore. I'm my own tribe. This gives you the attitude of Abu Lahab. Right? So, تَبَّتْ يَدَ أَبِي لَهَبٍ. This is a prayer from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A statement from Allah. Oh Muhammad, you don't even have to do it. You don't even have to say it. Because the Prophet Muhammad was so kind, so nice, so loving that he didn't make dua against his own uncle. He couldn't do that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came to do it on his behalf. And this goes to show you the power of the one who's being in a situation of injustice, experiencing injustice. That sometimes the one who's experiencing injustice close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you don't even have to make dua against the person. The angels make dua against the person on your behalf. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's fate will come to that person without even having to lift a word or say anything. Lift a finger or say anything. Subhanallah. Now here's the most powerful thing about all of this. That goes to show you the power of the Quran. Listen to this carefully. You know how Abu Lahab died? Abu Lahab got, and the details are long details, I wrote the whole thing for you in your notes. Abu Lahab died by getting a really contagious disease. A really contagious disease. And he was sick for a long time, months. And his whole family decided not to be with him anymore. Because they were afraid they're going to get that disease which is contagious. So they cut him off. Imagine, what goes around comes around. His own sons didn't want to see him. And when he died, his smell, you know when someone dies, eventually the smell becomes unbearable. That's why we bury the dead. When he died, the smell became so unbearable because already in his stomach he had all kinds of diseases, and now all of these gases are coming out and it's becoming really foul. So the Arabs started talking. And the last thing you want is for people to say negative things about the way you treat your own father, especially for the Arabs. So some people came to his son and said, listen, do something about it because the reputation is not going to be too good for you. So they decided, we can't touch him because if we touch him, we're going to get the disease. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to bury, or we're going to build a hole. We're going to dig a hole right next to his bed. We're going to come in with masks and with covered cloaks, like covered thobes, you can imagine. And we're going to come in with big planks of wood. And we're going to, after digging the hole, we're going to push him into the hole so that we don't touch him. And then they broke the house down on top of him so no one goes anywhere near. So the house became a graveyard. The house became abandoned. No one wanted to be with him in his days before he died. Not even his own children. And the only reason they buried him was because they did not want that stigma to be associated with them. This is the end of that man. And that's the power of that first word, first ayah in the Quran, in this surah, in Surah Al-Masjid, تَبَّتْ يَدَ أَبِي لَهَبٍ وَتَبٍ. We take it for granted. تَبَّتْ يَدَ أَبِي لَهَبٍ وَتَبٍ أَغْنَى عَنْهُ مَالُهُ وَمَا كَسَبَ. Small surah, Allahu Akbar. And you can't do that. Every ayah of the Quran, almost, for the most part, every surah of the Quran has this context that you must study, that you must understand. And the more you understand, the more it becomes again significant in your mind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَا أَغْنَى عَنْهُ مَالُهُ وَمَا كَسَبَ. Whatever, here, two things here, that did not help him in any shape or form. أَغْنَى, it did not come to, it was of no avail to him. So it was no avail to him. What was no avail to him? مَالُهُ, his wealth. His wealth. وَمَا كَسَبَ, and whatever he gained because of his wealth. So wealth is a currency, it's a commodity. And the things that we get and we gain, the prestige, the titles, the easygoing, the treatment, the social class, all of that, that we get because of our wealth is the kasab. So the wealth is the mal. And then whatever we get because of that wealth is the kasb. So Allah says his wealth didn't help him and his kasab did not help him. In a sense, make those distinctions. So Allah says clearly, his wealth didn't matter to him and his affiliations or anything that he got because of that wealth did not matter to him. We live in a society that is based on wealth. A society that is based on materialism. I'll come to you in a second. And that's what it is. And people define their happiness based on what they have. For the most part. There are a few exceptions. Even the Muslim community is getting to that level as well. You come to marry my daughter? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What kind of car do you drive? What kind of bank account do you have? You want to come and serve in the masjid board? Well, you need to be, powerful and rich and this and this and that. We're moving towards that, and that's unfortunate. Allah, look at this. Some of the biggest guys that could have used their wealth and energy and power to serve Allah, the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad himself. Look at the way that he's mentioned. So some people, here's the thing, guys, you have to be very careful. Okay? And I'm going to put this, the Orientalists, they will read the Quran. And they will read everything behind it. And then they will put these questions forward that really get you to question your deen. So one of the Orientalists, or some of the Orientalists, will ask, this is often a question that comes up often. Why is it that you have a surah in the Quran that curses a man who died 1437 years ago because of an issue that he had with Muhammad? Why do you have that as a story that you read in your prayer and get closer to Allah, and you have your kids to memorize it? He's dead, he's long gone. Why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep bringing these grudges against one? This is a religion of hate, a religion of disgust, a religion of Okay, genius. How would you respond to this? Anybody? Yeah. And they will say he's mentioned by name, Abu Lahab. Yeah.
Well, there's wisdom. We look at the specific, okay, that's a specific story, but there's a general benefit to the Muslims as to, family relations, what if you have problems with family relations, and so on and so forth. Much of what you mentioned, I'm just going to reiterate. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, good, the lessons. But they will say, why is he mentioned by name? What's wrong with that? Why the Quran keep doing this?
Say, why not?
Why not? You say, why not? Well, here's the power. Here's the power of the Quran, guys. Firstly, you got to be smart. You got to be smart, guys. You got to be a step ahead. Firstly, here's the response. Firstly, well, thank you for your question. Firstly, Abu Lahab is not the name of the uncle. The name is Abdul Uzza. Abu Lahab is a title, which means the father of flame. The father of flame applies to many kinds of attitudes and personalities. This is an attitude of an individual who's got anger, who's motivated by anger, filled with hate, filled with rage. Whatever he touches, he sets on fire. This is an individual or an attitude, a profile of a person that is ready to grow at the expense of others. For example, a merchant that deals with weapons. Doesn't care who's going to die and who's going to live. Willing to sell to both sides, just like Abu Lahab was. Do you understand? He's not mentioned by name. And there's no way you can mention him by name, because if you mention him by name, his name is Abdul Uzza. And the Quran is not going to mention Abdul Uzza because there is no Abdul Uzza. You cannot be a slave of the Uzza, which is a false female god, a female name of the Aziz. You understand? So you got to think ahead. You got to think ahead with these things and grapple with it and understand it and deeply analyze it and reflect and read and reread and be ready for these kinds of questions. Tamam? So that's again one of the ways to answer that. That yes, he's mentioned with his kunya, with his title, which could be anybody's kunya. Tamam? Not by name specifically. So the profile is there for anybody of the future. Do we have people like this nowadays? Like you can name a dozen in the world right now living that have this exact same attitude and exact same outlook on life. ما أغنى عنه ماله وما كسب سيصلى نارا ذات لهب. He will be exposed directly to the place in the fire where there's a flame. You can be in the fire. May Allah protect us all from ever being from those people. But someone can be in the fire, but they're not directly exposed to the flame. But he in the fire is exposed directly to the flame. Why? Goes back to who he was in this world. He was someone who carried around flames of anger, looking for opportunities to throw that. How is he going to be punished? People are punished in the akhirah in the way that they behaved in the dunya. That's a rule in the Quran. Okay? And people are going to be rewarded in the end of their lives, insha'Allah, according to the way that they lived in this dunya. And you see that happen so many times. Sometimes people, as an imam of a masjid, sometimes you go to see people on the deathbeds. Often, you go to see a lot of people on deathbeds. Right? And sometimes people be in comas. And when people go to coma, like they're in comas or they're asleep or they're on drugs or they have a lot of anesthesia, or the stress of death really brings the true colors in people out. I remember just a few weeks ago I went to see somebody and the doctor said, okay, that person, khalas, they're on a lot of drugs right now, and don't take whatever they say seriously. They're not going to be filtered right now. They're all, khalas, so don't take whatever they say seriously. So we're just sitting down, and that person laying down in their bed starts to do the adhan, and starts reciting from Surah Al-Baqarah, recites all the way from Surah Al-Baqarah, halfway through Surah Al-Baqarah without making a single mistake. Can you imagine? I've been in those situations as well, where that person on their deathbed, I hated my son, never visit me, astaghfirullah, I hate my wife, I hate my kids, I hate my life, I hate Allah, I hate Muhammad. Nothing. Some people say that. Wallahi, it happens, and I'm sure you'll see that when you in your own lives. Hopefully you see the best, but sometimes you come across these examples. So people will die in a way that will kind of foreshadows their place in the future. And also people will be punished in the afterlife. Forgive me, out of all the places where I could touch the stop button, subhanAllah. Anyway, so people also, no, I started again, don't worry, you can sit down. Yeah. So people will also be punished in the akhirah in relation to the crime they committed in dunya. Fir'aun built his castle on the water. أَلَيْسَ لِي مُلْكُ مِصْرَ وَهَذِهِ الْأَنْهَارُ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِي. Don't you see that I own Egypt and these rivers run from underneath my castle? His castle is made out of glass. Right? So you could see the water flowing, you could see the swimming fish underneath. How was he destroyed? He drowned by water, subhanAllah. Can you imagine? The water that took Musa in that little taboot, in that little cradle, all the way to his castle is the water that drowned him. Look at the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can use the water to save one, Musa, and can use the water to drown one, Fir'aun. The power of Allah, don't underestimate it. Don't question it. Really. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, look at Qarun and how he died. Qarun built his castle above the mountain, where you could see it from afar. He wanted everybody to see it. Wherever you are, this is my house, this is my castle, this is my kingdom. And that's what he did. فَخَرَجَ عَلَى قَوْمِهِ فِي زِينَتِهِ. He went in front of the people with his zina. Right? With his most beautiful clothing and most beautiful displays. Look at all the things that I have. How did Allah destroy him? He allowed the earth to swallow him. An earthquake brought his whole kingdom to destruction. So the one who elevated himself above people on earth was elevated. The one who elevated himself above water was destroyed by water. These are examples that get us to think. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, سَيَصْلَى نَارًا ذَاتَ لَهَبٍ. He will be exposed to a fire that is directly with the flames. وَامْرَأَتُهُ حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ. And his imra'ah, this is translated as wife in the Quran. But that's not necessarily true. And here's why. In the Quran, you will see 3 words for wife or spouse. Number 1 is zawj. Zawj. Okay? Number 2 is sahib. وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَأَخِيهِ. Number 3 is imra'ah. Imra'ah is, for the most part, associated with a negative connotation. When you say imra'ah, it means this guy and his woman. Imagine when you say this guy and his woman, instead of this guy and his wife, this guy and his partner. Right? So imra'ah, when it's used in the Quran to refer to a relationship among the spouses, it refers to a broken relationship. And if you study the relationship that he had with his wife, it was a relationship based on mutual benefit. So they weren't in love, they weren't really experiencing the beauty of marriage. They were, again, you read the history and you read the story, they were pretty much just living for materialism and getting along with one another because they're both really attractive, both very beautiful, both very powerful. So there was that, again, prestige and class associated. Not really a story based on love and humility and living and loving with each other with mercy and compassion. وَامْرَأَتُهُ حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ. His wife will be carrying the fuel to the flames. His wife will be carrying the wood to the flames in which is going to be burnt in the akhirah. Why? Because in this dunya, she carried the flames to his fire. This is very important. Spouses, for anyone who's married, you know very well that you have a huge impact on your wife. You have a huge impact on your spouse. Usually women a lot more than men. You know, women have a lot more impact on us than vice versa. But you know, also you have that leverage as well, and it depends on the relationship. So you can use that impact to get the best out of that person, to move that person closer to Allah. وَأَصْلَحْنَا لَهُ زَوْجَهُ إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ وَيَدْعُونَنَا رَغَبًا وَرَهَبًا وَكَانُوا لَنَا خَاشِعِينَ. One of the things that blesses a marriage is that when people compete, the husband and the wife compete towards good, use each other's energy and use each other's impact on the person to bring the best out of that person. But these two didn't do that. She would always bring the worst in him out. When he would calm down, she would tell him, why are you? You're going to calm down, you're going to let him say that, you're going to let Muhammad do that to you? He's your nephew, man. Put some away. So this attitude, bringing the worst out of him, firing him, fueling him. What do we learn from this? So she fueled him in this akhirah. Can you imagine what a psychological torment? To be the one that will actually carry the wood to the fire of your husband in the akhirah. That's psychological, that's really damaging. Right? But that's there as a deterrent. You'll see the Orientalists like, man, what a vivid image you're teaching to your like 4-year-old kid. تبت يدا أبي لهب وتب ما أغنى عنه ماله وما كسب سيصلى نارا ذات لهب وامرأة. I don't know why they're not. I don't understand. Some of you are like doing it together. I don't know what. Apparently it helps you memorize, right? But some of the Orientals will be, how are you guys teaching this stuff to your children? Well, there's a story behind it. There's a context. There's a lesson to be learned. There's a moral. Right? SubhanAllah. And everything that is taught, we should teach again with this context in mind. So his wife will be doing this just like she was doing in the akhirah. في جيدها حبل من مسد. Around her neck, there will be a rope made out of fire, like a rope made out of fibers that is on fire. Why is that the case? Or even a rope made out of fibers that is basically limiting her breathing. The reason why is, I want you to listen to this carefully. Two have been proposed by the commentators. The first is that women are a lot more, what can I say? And I want to be very careful with the way that I say this. Women focus a lot more on their looks than men, for the most part. There are exceptions in any case. But for the most part, looks matter more to women themselves than men. Socially, it all depends on the way you socially condition people. Can we come to a society where men and women focus more? Can you come across exceptions? Yes, Allah is possible. But historically, that's been the case. And be very careful with the way that you phrase things. Tamam? So, she used her beauty for bad. What does this mean? She used to walk around wearing the most beautiful, luxurious amulets and bracelets and chains and all these things and necklaces. And she used to basically show her body. You know, when you wear a necklace to highlight certain parts of your body, to highlight your neck, your shoulders, to highlight specific, assets, if you want to say. She would do this, and then she would say to the people, look at us. We're very classy women. Look at the way that we dress. Look at the way that we present ourselves. We're very refined, very polished. Look at all the gold, the jewelry, the money that we have. Look at those followers of Muhammad, weak. Sumayya, slave, Bilal. Who are they? Look at them and look at us. Who do you think has the truth? So there was this connotation of like, I'm pretty, I'm beautiful, I'm attractive, I'm powerful. Truth is on my side. This person's got nothing, therefore truth can never be on her side. So equating power and wealth and prestige and looks with truth. And that's not the case, but it's stupid the way they think about this. But that's what happened. And the other thing is, she had a beautiful necklace that was very valuable. So she was trying to convince her husband, look, we need to spend some money to like basically fund the propaganda against Muhammad. How? Through weapons, through words, like getting a poet to say some bad things. It's like the marketing of the past. Poetry is the marketing of the past. Imagine a really nice, powerful anti-Muslim video. The Muslims are coming in 2020. There's going to be 5 Muslims instead of 1. Oh no! That kind of thing. Right? That kind of, that kind of propaganda. Back then it was poetry. So she sold one of her necklaces to fund propaganda against the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and against the Muslims. And because of that reminder again, she's going to have a necklace made out of fiber leaves that are going to be set on fire to remind her of that decision. And of that, it wasn't just a one thing, of that mentality and the attitude of using the wealth that Allah has allowed you to attain to fight Allah. Can you imagine people who have so much prestige, power, policy making, potential and all, using whatever they've been given to fight, to distance themselves from Allah, to move away from Allah. And what do we learn from that? We learn to do the opposite. وَابْتَغِ فِي مَا أَتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ. Use whatever Allah has given you to attain the akhirah. فِي جِدِيَ حَبْلٌ مِّن مَسَدٍ. That's the ending of the surah, right? 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 There you go. That's Surah Al-Masjid in a nutshell. So let's تبت يد أبي لهب وتب ما أغنى عنه ماله ما كسب سيصلى نارا ذات لهب وامرأته حمالة الحطب في جيدها حبل من مسد. It would take you literally 15 seconds to recite 5 ayat. That's the context behind it, and we only just touched the surface, scratched the surface. Reading. There's a whole book came across 350 pages analyzing Surah Al-Masjid. Even I couldn't finish reading it. I got through the first 20 pages, like, man, I need to put this on the side for some time that I have more time dedicated to this. But the analysis, the Quran is an ocean of knowledge, a wealth of information. And for the one who's going to really become a student of the Quran, you really need to delve. And the amount you're going to be able to extract from the Quran is going to depend on your commitment, your sincerity, and your connection with Him. Really. So I hope that as we continue this journey, I hope that you can, inshallah, take it as an opportunity to be brought closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I hope the brother that's or that's recording this can share it with everybody else here who's basically coming and listening, just in case you miss anything. I hope that you can all get your notes, inshallah, online. The website, we're having some glitches right now. The brothers have gone to Hajj, who are on the tech team. So we have some glitches here and there, but we're working on as soon as they come back from Hajj, inshallah, getting everything up and running. And know that this is a non-for-profit organization. I myself, I'm not planning, inshallah, to take any salary from this. Everybody else that is working here and there, like the video team, we do pay them just the expenses, and also the work. Any money that we're pumping into this, we're pumping, inshallah, into basically doing more da'wah work. So if you have the opportunity in any way, shape, or form to support it in any way, please do so that we can, inshallah, continue to produce more work and connect people with the Quran, inshallah, in the best way possible. So again, I hope that, inshallah, you can share the word with your friends and families here, so that, inshallah, when we come to St. Catherine's, there could be more people who are here also to learn and to benefit. And take whatever you've learned, take your notes, take whatever you've learned today and share it. Spread the khair. Let's cause this ripple effect so that we can all learn and share with others, inshallah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. We'll spend the last 10 minutes, inshallah, taking any questions in case anyone has them. Bismillah. Yes, my sister.
Well, it's not really a question, but it's just thanks very much for all this interpretation and explanation, because I only knew the translation. But if you think about current events in the United States, for example, this surah is so relevant. For example, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with Trump in the future. But for example, he is trying to curse Muslims. He's trying to divide the country. He's trying to bring out hate against non-white people. And just in the polls, for example, his approval rating from being higher, I mean, it wasn't that great, but it's slipping. So even in this dunya, it's showing that if you're doing these kind of things, this will happen possibly to you.
I look at the Trump situation and I say, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. And the reason why, really, I think Trump is a lot smarter than we think, number one. There's a nice documentary called The Man Behind Trump. What's his name?
Steve Bannon.
What's his name?
Steve Bannon.
Steve, that guy. He's also, a'udhu billah, smart in the most difficult ways.
Robert Stone.
Roger Stone.
But Steve Bannon now has been kicked out of the White House. So he was trying to also have evil, and he was the one responsible for the anti-immigration from Muslim countries policy.
Correct.
So now he's left in disgrace from the White House, but he's saying, now I'm going to even work harder against and do more bad things by... So I don't know, it's hard to see. It's hard to see the good in this. It's hard to see the good in this. But I can tell you a few things. Number one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us through the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's hadith, وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَيُؤَيِّدُ هَذَا الدِّينَ وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَيُؤَيِّدُ هَذَا الدِّينَ بِالرَّجُلِ الْفَاجِرِ وفي رواية أخرى بالرجل الكافر والأصح الرجل الفاجر. Allah will bring victory to this deen through the bad Muslim, or also through the good, the non-Muslim. Meaning what? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can sometimes use someone who says, I'm Muslim, I'm Muslim, but they're doing all of their work for the sake of a profile building and whatnot. So Allah allows them to do the work so everybody's benefiting, but they're not benefiting. Or even a non-Muslim, because the bigotry and hate they spread against Islam eventually becomes the reason that people become more open to understanding and accepting Muslims. It's like, man, they're on the receiving end. They're really going through a lot. They need help right now.
It's really unfair. And I think people have actually become nicer in Canada after Trump towards Muslims. Like, we never want to be like that. So like, I can even relate to this myself. Like, you know, wearing a thobe and walking around, you'll see the odd, you know, crazy person saying some crazy thing. You and your dress, man, get back to go back to India, like a habibi. Like, if you're confused. You tell the Sikh guy to go back to Egypt, and you tell him to go to India. But you need a lot of help. But anyway, so nowadays it's actually improved, and I'm sure, like, in certain areas. So this is all the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah will use, you know, people that are far away and people that are not Muslim and people that are Muslim that are, you know, hypocrites for a plan that you can't even imagine. And two, this is the greatest testament that democracy is a system. Although it has great things and all the components of it are resonating with Islam, it is a system that cannot work without giving people responsibility and giving people education and empowering people spiritually and with information. Think about how Trump got into power. By playing on a very large segment of the population, by, you know, promising them things and by attending to their needs. And Allah knows best what He's all about and His mindset and how He works. But this goes to show you, in terms of a system, you know, we always say democracy or this, capitalism, communism. These are all systems that are human-made. They have many great aspects and components we can definitely learn from, and they have learned from other cultures and whatnot. But realistically speaking, no system will be perfect, right? And that's part of the perfection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala manifested in that. That it doesn't matter how great your system seems or whatnot. There is nothing grander and more perfect than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that in itself is something that we can definitely learn from that. So I always say, alhamdulillah, we look at the bright side and we use it as an opportunity. And also, two other points is the people accepting Islam have actually doubled or tripled command, even in Hamilton after Trump. I remember in Hamilton, the people that were coming into my office to accept Islam were, you know, double or triple the week or 2 weeks right after Trump came into power and all the stuff that. Because people are like, man, I wanna learn. And they start learning and they have friends like, you've always been here, but I've always thought you're crazy. But hey, I want to read. Tell me more about Islam. Wow, subhanAllah. And then the last thing is, people are usually, let's be honest, let's be really honest, okay? People are usually very complacent. And only when there's pressure do we start working as Muslims. If we don't have opposition, we're all going to be, alhamdulillah. Look, if Muslims had everything, if you went to the supermarkets and there was halal food, if the Prime Minister was Muslim, if the masajid were full, and everybody was given sadaqah, and everybody was doing hajj, and everybody was doing umrah, what are you going to do? Alhamdulillah. Yalla, let's sit home and enjoy. Enjoy coffee, sip some tea, watch some Allah al-Musta'an. Right? So the pressure is there to bring the best of us out, to give us opportunities to do good. To ask us, what are you willing to do? Yes, my brother.
I want to thank you for your talk. I just
May
have
Allah
a
bless
couple
you.
quick ones. So those are
Sure.
some very good points.
Jazakumullah
I
khair.
used to work in Kentucky in the 1998-99,
Mhm.
and even in the 80s and in the 90s, everyone thought Muslims were terrorists. And while I was in Kentucky, they had Confederate statues.
Mhm.
And it was only until Trump was brought into power, many issues are then brought out in the open, and it is only now, after Trump was elected, those statues came down.
Imagine that. It's a great example.
When we had Obama, I still went to Kentucky. I was just in Tennessee in October before the election. They still have Confederate crap all over the place.
Yeah.
And I'm walking around there celebrating idiots that believe in slavery.
Yeah.
And it's not until after Trump's
SubhanAllah.
elected,
That's-
then the
yeah.
Confederate things came down.
Yeah.
It is only when you bring these issues
The
to
face,
the forefront,
yeah.
then people say, Muslims aren't that bad. Muslims have been here since George Washington. They've been here long before, for hundreds of years, before the Europeans came over. Many Europeans, and they've been around for a long time. I wanted to ask...
That's an excellent point, mashallah.
When you bring the issues out to the forefront, then people will make their decisions. While there's a small group of hatred, they'll always be out there. There'll be 10 times or 100 times
Support.
more of the people that will be the anti-protesters that will then be in support. Then we'll say, no, we band together.
Yeah.
10% of the Muslims...
Let me interrupt you here, forgive me.
Yeah,
But
okay.
is that also fitna?
So my second
Can the
question
support
is...
be a fitna?
Yes, my second question
Which
is...
one is a fitna?
My second question is...
Yeah.
About 10 years ago, there was an imam that was here that made a very controversial comment and raised a lot of problems. he said, your spouses are a fitna. In particular, he said, your wife is a fitna. And then there were some women that were very upset about this comment. Now, you could try to say that it is gender neutral. There are many people who took that different ways. But if you understand, I like your comment that fitna can be a positive and your wealth is a fitna.
Yeah.
Can you say your spouse or your wife, who you say has more influence over your husband than vice versa, is your wife a fitna?
Okay. As we said, fitna is a positive that really tests your commitment and tests your focus and your goals. Tamam?
Yes.
If your husband is telling you, I don't want you to wear the hijab because you don't look pretty. I don't want you to wear the hijab because I don't think it's part of the deen. And you give up the hijab because of your husband, then your husband has become a fitna. Right? So I would say it's gender neutral, but there's wisdom in the Quran mentioning the fact that women are or have more of that fitna. And I don't think it's a negative thing. I would take it as a compliment. Allah is saying you have a really strong impact on your husband. That's a blessing. That's a great thing. So be careful how you use it and how you basically, invest in it. You can make it bad, you can make it good. All Allah is saying is that your husband, because of what Allah has given you, whether it's looks, whether it's commitment, whether it's devotion, whether it's the femininity, whether it's a mixture of all personality and also physical attributes, he really loves you and he's willing to do a lot for you. That's a blessing. Why look at it as a negative thing? So use it for good, right? Mistranslation again, sometimes. Things lost across language and across cultures. But going back to the comment that you said, when the face of white supremacy comes out in US, and now it's giving the white supremacists a voice, this creates a counter movement against that. A lot of these counter movements are going to be people who have also experienced oppression. Some of them experienced oppression that is socially defined as oppression, but Islamically would not be defined as oppression. Do you know what I mean? So even in the support that we get, we have to be careful because some of it might be fitna. Let me say it clearly. Or actually in another way. I come to you, I say, Muhammad, you're getting hurt as a Muslim. Well, guess what? I want to help you. I want to give you, here's $100,000. I want you to invest in yourself and be good. But by the way, I'm a drug dealer. So I've been persecuted by the government. Like, they don't like me much. And the government doesn't like you either. So we have that in common. Do you understand? So not everybody who's going to support you and come on the bandwagon of support is going to be someone that's worthy of your support. So be careful not to take support from someone who Islamically you cannot support in the present or in the future because of their affiliates or because of their commitments or because of their orientations or goals. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense.
Drug dealing is a very extreme example. There are minor examples of that. So read between the lines. Yes?
I have a question about, you say Abdul Lahab, his name is Abdul Izzah.
Yeah.
So if they say they had female versions of Allah.
Yes.
So did they have the 99 names of Allah?
Not all 99. There were a few. They had 360 gods around the Kaaba. They all had names. Some of them were names from attributes. Some of them were named after trees. Some of them were named after holy people, saints, things like that. Not all of them were female derivatives of Allah's names. Wal'iyadu billah. Good question. Okay? Anybody else? Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Okay, in that case, may Allah bless you all for coming. Let's see each other, inshallah, 2 weeks from now. This is again bi-monthly. So please, inshallah, see you bi-weekly. So we'll see you, inshallah, next week. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Again, if you go to QuranJourney.tv, you will be able to get all the notes. All the videos are also there, and all the audio is coming as well. So please do download your notes and have them ready, inshallah, for next class. We're done class 3. We're going to have class 4 next class, inshallah, which is going to be Surah Al-Takwir, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.